Hello my friends, welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads. I talk about books on this channel because I read a lot, and I have finished 6 books since my last video. But before I get to them, I'll tell you a little bit about what's been happening lately. It has been dry here in Victoria, BC. The grass has gone dormant. I think it's been about 3 weeks since we've had rain, so tinder dry. In the nearest community park to our house, there are signs reminding people not to smoke. There's extreme fire danger. There are about 425 wildfires currently burning across the province of British Columbia, including there's an out-of-control wildfire quite near Victoria. It's near the town of Souk. It's about a square kilometer in size. It started Monday afternoon. So on Tuesday night when I went rowing, afterwards the sky had that spooky look, you know, with the sun coming through smoky air. And on Wednesday morning, I wasn't scheduled to row Wednesday morning, but those people who were, they were coughing so much they just canceled the rows. So air quality has not been great. It's a little better today, so I'm filming outside, but I can feel it catching in my throat. Now, the worst wildfire news that I heard this morning is it's just devastating. The wildfire that was in Jasper National Park went right through the town, and much of the town is burned, and I feel so much for Jasperites who are displaced now and don't know right now the state of their homes and their businesses. And at my book club last night, I'm filming this on Thursday, by the way. So on my YA book club last night, all of us had been many times to the Jasper Park Lodge because that's where the annual Alberta Library Conference has been held for many years. So yes, very sad. Okay, so on to the good news. I mentioned in my last video that I did a buddy read with Marilyn Maya Mendoza and Sarah of Roadworthy. We read Margaret Lawrence's masterpiece, The Diviners, and Sarah mentioned that she's on the lookout for some more Margaret Lawrence. She's going to be coming to Victoria soon, and I checked 2 little free libraries, and the second place, bonanza, I picked up 7 Margaret Lawrence novels for Sarah. So thank you to those people who have the little free library. I am going to bring some books to replenish it, although it doesn't really need it. It was one of those little free libraries that was so jam-packed that I think I actually did them a favor by taking some out. Yeah, no, it was good. And the other great thing is that Lori had cousins and an aunt visiting for a week. They left yesterday. We had so much fun with them, showing off this beautiful city. We went to Butchart Gardens. I think I'll include some footage at the end of this video. We went on a whale watching tour, saw a humpback whale, and the naturalists who were on this boat were full of facts and information. You learned a lot, and it was just so great to be out on the water too. We went on a gorge tour, so the body of water that's quite close to our house, where I go rowing several times a week, including Pride on the Water, the queer rowing event that's on Tuesday evenings. Yeah, so it's a saltwater inlet, and so with this gorge tour on a small boat, we started out in the Victoria Inner Harbor, and our boat driver, who grew up right in this area, told us all kinds of interesting things about the working shipyard that we go through and that I row by when I'm in my boat. I was able to show off, there's the rowing club and the trestle bridge, and there's the place where Lori goes swimming several times a week, you know, all that stuff. And we also got to see seals basking in the sun, and a baby seal suckling its mother. Oh, it was adorable, adorable. Yeah, so we went walking down the Songhees Trail, which is along the ocean all the way to the community of Esquimalt. Lots of great stuff, so many laughs, so wonderful, wonderful time. Now I'm going to tell you about books, starting with a picture book by local authors. Have you ever heard A Whale Exhale? And it's by Caroline Woodward with art by Claire Victoria Watson. And I've got a bookmark in here. That's emerging local authors that I picked up at the public library, and I am going to investigate these authors, getting to know the writers in this city that I have moved to. Just been here about 9 months now so far. So this picture book is a rhyming book that's about place, about where you are. And there's the humpback on the front. Really apropos, since we just saw a humpback on Saturday. And I like the detail of its flippers. This is the humpback's defense. And there's one place on the whale's body where it encourages the growth of barnacles, and you can see it here on the edge of its flippers, so that when the whale is using its flipper to fight off orcas, for example, it's like it's got this armor, barnacle armor. Those are very sharp little animals that are little crustaceans on there. I'll read you the first little bit. Have you ever heard a whale exhale and slap the water with its tail, breathing in after breathing out, heaving whoosh with a mighty spout? Have you ever seen a seal spy hop, then dive underwater with a playful plop? Ah, nam, oh, knee. Have you ever touched a sea anemone, closing up in case you are an enemy? So, sea life, coastal sea life, and a sweet picture book that made me smile. Next up is a book that made me smile and cry. It's Kathleen Jamie's collection of poetry and nature writing called Cairn. This was a birthday gift from my dear friend Kathy. She always picks the best books for me, and she is clever this way because she knows that I really resist ordering directly from the UK, and this is not out in Canada yet. She ordered it from Blackwell's. Oh, it's so good. I have previously read work by Kathleen Jamie, so I knew that I was going to enjoy it. Look at all my flags. Oh, so many great passages. And I do want to read one or two to you, so hang on. This is called The Midwinter Wail. December. For once, the air is so still you can actually smell the ivy that crowds the slope down to the beach, and the sea beyond is flat. For once, there's very little shipping, just a tugboat making its way up the Firth. A young couple at the vantage point quickly give directions. Look to the island, now, right of the beacon. Yes, see the blow. Yes, the blow. 2 or 3 in quick succession hang like white shrubs above the water, dispersing as the animal's long dark back appears to slide along the surface, a fleck of landscape on the sea. It feeds languidly. After a few moments, it raises its tail flukes, the signal that it's diving deeper for a while. Then it's a matter of waiting for it to resurface, of watching for the next blow. And that was exactly what it was like when we were in the whale watching boat, watching for the blow, and then when it was ready to dive, seeing the tail fluke. And it's by the tail that the naturalists were able to identify that the whale we were watching is called Orion. And one more little bit. This is from a section called the Bass Rock. There's no one else here today at the lookout. No whales have been reported lately. They are more likely to appear later in the year. There are oil tankers, though, riding at anchor, waiting for their turn at the refinery upriver. One day they will cease to arrive, but can you imagine that day? A century ago, huge numbers of herring boats worked down this coast. Harbors so full you could cross them dry-shod. All gone. And one day, the oil tankers will be gone. Kathleen Jamie is the Macker of Scotland. That's the poet laureate. She assumed the role in 2021, taking over from Jackie Kay. So she is going to hold the position for 5 years. Her poetry includes lots of Scots vocabulary. So these words are especially having to do with the geography and with the plants and the animals. She combines, like I said, nature writing with poetry and culture and history and the poignancy of not being able to trust that nature is something we can always return to because of the changes that we have caused as of what we've done to the environment. And she also captures the aging process itself, aging as human beings. We grow up, we see things differently, the passage of time. Oh, it's a lovely, lovely book. If you can't get your hands on this, pick up some of her older books because they are great as well. Now, this particular edition has got some delicate pencil drawings. They're by Miek Zwanborn, who's a Dutch artist and writer. And because I liked her art so much, I looked to see what else she had done, and I found a book on seaweed that I placed a hold on at the library. So miscellany about seaweed, I'm looking forward to that. I love how one book leads me to another. And speaking of a book leading to another, the book that I was most reminded of when I read Cairn, aside from Kathleen Jamie's earlier work, is this one by Nan Shepherd, The Living Mountain. So another book of nature writing set in Scotland. My segue for this next book is that Kathleen Jamie was writing about endings, and this graphic novel, which is sort of an anthology, is also about endings. It's called Swan Song, and it's entirely written by W. Maxwell Prince, but each chapter is the work of a different artist. The first chapter, The End of the World, is by Martín Simmonds. Then there's End of a Marriage by Caspar Wijngaard. Then there's The End of the World. That one is by Felipe Andrade. So this is post-apocalyptic, when people emerge. Then there's The End of a Sentence with art by Caitlin Yarsky. So this one is a sentence looked at in more than one sense, because there's a fellow whose prison sentence has ended, and he is somebody who loves Mad Libs, so ending sentences, and it's about making choices. Then there's The End of Anhedonia, which means when you experience no pleasure. And the last chapter is The End of the Sidewalk, so a spoof on Shel Silverstein, and even the text in here is all in verse. I found this in my library's Hoopla collection, and I very much enjoyed it. Got more comics to tell you about. This one is from Quebec. It's called The Jellyfish. It's by Boum, translated into English by Robin Lang and Helge Dascher. It's about 200 pages, and it is based on something that the author has gone through herself, which is a visual disability. Boum is now, I think, mostly blind in one eye. So in this novel, we have a character who goes to the optometrist because it's like she's seeing a jellyfish in her eye. And over the course of the novel, these floaters that kind of look like jellyfish sort of multiply and till it's becoming harder and harder for her to live with this condition. At the same time, she falls for a woman that she meets, so there's this relationship. She's got her pet rabbit at home, she's got her best friend who is there to support her when she needs help, so it's really a story about found family as well, and the art is fabulous. It reminds me a little bit of manga. Oops, the way that it's on the page. Wow, what is her name? Odette. Odette is her name. You can see where she's getting ready to go out for a night out, trying on different outfits, and then once she gets to the venue, she's awkward. I love the way that the top panel is wider when you're looking at the venue from the outside, and then once she goes inside, it's squeezed, and you can feel that it's tight in there. So just the brilliant way that the author plays with the use of space on the page. Yeah. It's a great story. I loved it. And I also love this book. Usually I save my best books for the end, but this week I have so much great stuff. So I'm going to tell you about Blue Rune by Hari Kunzru. And I did this as a audio and text combo. I'm going to be discussing it with my feminist book club on Sunday, which means that I've got 3 book clubs in less than a week. So that was the YA book club last night. On Sunday, it's this one, the Feminist Book Club. And then on Monday, we're going to be discussing This Arab is Queer in my Lesbian Plus book club. Yeah. Anyway, Blue Rune. The author reads his own work in the audio. I really loved listening to it, but there were so many passages that I wanted to bookmark, well, that I did bookmark in the audio, and then I found them in the text. So that'll make it easy to discuss it with my book club later. It's a story of Jay. It's told in first person by him. He's an artist, and he met this other artist when they were both at art school, Rob. Their personalities are quite different, and there is a woman and romantic engagement with both of the men. So Alice, Rob, and Jay. When we first meet Jay, it is much farther in the future. It is during the time of the COVID lockdown, and he is delivering groceries and had no idea that the person he was delivering to was Alice, and she had married Rob, and there they were. So the narrative does flip backwards in time, so that's where we find out how they all met. And I'm going to talk more about that time shift element in books once I finish telling you about this, but I learned something about myself, so I will share that with you. So there is so much about the art world and money and collectors and why we create art, and I just found it all so fascinating. And I have two sections I'm going to read you short little bits from, so you get the idea of what Kunzru's writing is like. Rob, in particular, felt it was the mark of a true artist to be incapable of looking after yourself. Part of it was demonstrating that you were indifferent to convention. You borrowed money and didn't pay it back. You pulled your pants down at the bar. But he was also proud of not knowing how to do boring things, and was good at inducing other people to do them for him, whether that was laundry or filling in a tax form. He tried his helpless act with me once or twice, but I didn't go for it. Rob liked to be coddled, to be made to feel special, but I knew he secretly looked down on people who gave in and did things for him. I didn't think he respected Alice. To 20-something me, an artist was primarily someone who was trying not to get captured. The world was dominated by the interests of the rich and powerful. It was organized to lure you, to trick you into their service. An artist ought, I thought, to live like a spy, a spiritual fugitive. Art itself consisted of finding ways to say no, to become invisible to power. Only then could an artwork have any claim to authenticity. Later on, I found Alice dressed in yoga pants and protective equipment, a mask and visor and surgical gloves. She was ferrying bags of food into the kitchen. Seeing me, she performed that eye smile people did when we all wore masks. Amazing how everyone disappears when there's work to be done. "Hey!" Marshall called out from the living room, where he was apparently lying on the sofa. "I made the order." Nicole made the order. "On my card," which made me chuckle. So back when Jay did his degree show, he titled it The Unknown Masterpiece. And I discovered that that's a work by Balzac, which I hadn't known about. So now I'm going to check out that book. So here's another example of one book leading me to another. If you have read Unknown Masterpiece, send me a comment down below, okay? I'm curious if you think that it's something I actually will enjoy. And another thing I want to talk about, since there's so much about art in this book, is there is going to be a art-themed readathon happening in September. It's going to be called Framed in September. There are going to be announcements on a number of booktube channels happening August 1st, I think, is when our announcements are going to go out. So watch for those. And if Blue Runes sounds interesting to you, maybe earmark it for reading in September. Now, I was going to tell you something that I figured out about myself as a reader as I was reading this. So I mentioned that the story starts out in present day and then goes back in time. Well, I discovered that I was resisting reading the earlier timeline. I was kind of finding it boring. I was kind of not wanting to read it. And I realized that that attitude has been behind several of my DNFs this year. I couldn't remember exactly which titles, so Storygraph does keep track. There were 11 DNFs so far this year, in which I read an average of 37% before giving up. But the DNFs that I have in mind are actually books that I gave up on so soon that I didn't even keep them on Storygraph. I didn't count them as DNFs because I didn't get far enough into them. And in both cases of these ones that I'm thinking of, the reason that I was put off was when it switched from contemporary time to a previous time. So went back in time, and I just couldn't make that shift. So one of them was The Librarianist by Patrick DeWitt, and the other one was one by Maggie O'Farrell, The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. And that hasn't happened to me in the past, where I've had a problem with time shift and going back in time. So I was really thinking about what's happening now. And I think it's probably because since moving from Edmonton to Victoria in October, I've tried to sort of cut off thinking about my life then in Edmonton. I haven't cut off my friends there, but I lived in the same house for 37 years in Edmonton, and I find that I don't want my mind to go back there and think about it as self-protection, to not get too sad, something along those lines. So that might be carrying over into my fiction reading. I'm not sure, but that's my best guess. So just something kind of quirky and weird, I guess. But yeah, I think it might be connected to that, because I put my mind into a character as I'm reading, and so I feel their emotions, and if they're reminiscing, going back in time, then I'm feeling that you know, within me, going back, looking back at my history. And right now I'm resisting that. So, kind of interesting. I hope you don't find that boring. But if you've had any kind of similar experience, please let me know that I'm not alone, okay? That's what the comments are for. And this next book is also art related. It's called Saints of the Household, and it's written by Hari Tison. Hari Tison is a Costa Rican American, and she is of Bribri heritage. Bribri are a indigenous group from Costa Rica, and so are the two brothers that this story is about. And the narrative alternates between Jay and Max. These boys are about 17 years old. They're in their final year of high school, and they are born 11 months apart. So they've always been very close. One is an artist, one is a writer. There are so many things going on in their life, including having a violent father and a mother who is putting up with it, staying with him. That does sound grim, but this is done so well. At my book club last night, we all praised this to high heaven. Yeah, and none of us liked the cover. I don't know, I hope somebody likes this cover. It's artwork by Jazz Aline. It's a Canadian artist from Treaty 1 territory. She might be Anishinaabe, I'm not sure, but there's a cousin in the story who is Anishinaabe. The book is set in Minnesota, so it is on Anishinaabe land. The style is very engaging. Jay's pieces are done in kind of vignettes, and Max his pieces are written in poetry, and on the page they look quite lovely. So here he's talking about the empty space. So the concrete poetry looks great on the page. The words are great too. I'm going to read you a little bit about Max, who has submitted a portfolio of paintings. He wants to get into art school, and he is still painting, of course. I do 3 trash paintings on my best canvases. I am scared of slipping backward without an art school application in front of me. On the 4th, I'm sweating as if I am fighting for this painting. What is a painting if not for healing? What is art if not for transformation? I have so many angry paintings. My recollection of each bruise on my body, on my own mother's, on my brother's. Each line I pull is raging and sure, flung across the canvas, the drips of red blood or nail polish. And that is Saints of the Household. I want to talk a little bit more about the top 100 books that the New York Times put out, and then right after that they did a top 100 Reader's Choice. Now there was an overlap of 39 titles, so when you combine the two top 100 lists, there's actually 161 titles, and I've read 100 of them, but out of those 2 lists, there are only 5 Canadian authors. And that's really stretching it, counting Rachel Cusk as a Canadian author, because she was born in Canada to British parents. And then they moved back to England, and that's where she's lived ever since. Anyway, what would it be like to have that kind of list, but with all Canadian titles? A project might be in the works about that. Stay tuned. And that's all I've got for you today. So thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate hearing from you. So please do say hello in the comments down below. If you have a favorite Canadian book, let me know in the comments down below. And in the meantime, happy reading and enjoy some scenes from Wijngaard Garden. Bye for now.
No, too hard. It's not like you're loud.
Other members of the family came over.
So funny.
Where in Florida, where we are in the backyard, we have
Sailed as a driver?
I did it.
Oh, look at the monkey tree. Monkey tree.
Can't have a fountain. Yeah, I can't have a.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.